joining in just now, welcome. We're just going to wait for another minute before we jump into the Buzz and Review 2021 version. Just grab something to drink and sit back. Awesome. It is 7:05, and it's time to kickstart the Buzz and Review 2021. Welcome. As you can probably tell, this is not in person. This is a massive undertaking by NeuroTechX with about 19 chapters with 10 online events, pulling together one global neurotech community. So welcome to the 5-chapter conglomerate Buzz and Review. We're going to briefly introduce every one of the panelists that will be guiding you through the Buzz and Review today. And I'm Saurabh Shah from Neurotech Hamilton.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cesar Chavarria from Boston.
Hi, everyone. I'm Al Mashal from Boston as well.
I'm Alex Aguera, also from Boston.
Joe Artuso from New York City.
Hi, guys. It's John Griffiths here from Toronto.
And there's Rachel Ho, who's also from Neurotech Hamilton, who will be joining us shortly. Apart from the panelists from the NeuroTechX community, we have 6 amazing companies that will be present with us. Remember to hang around after the presentation, join GatherTown. We have 2 amazing sponsors. Shout out to BrainCo and Neurometrics. And we have 4 other companies that will be present: OpenBCI, Cognition, Mindex, and Divergence Neuro. There'll be representatives from all these companies. They'll have booths with amazing videos. Feel free to join, check them out, and go and have a chat with them. Without further ado, let's introduce NeuroTechX. So NeuroTechX is the largest international community for neurotechnology enthusiasts that has one central goal of facilitating the advancement of neurotechnology. It does so by providing some key resources and learning opportunities and being a leader in local and worldwide technological initiatives. So NeuroTechX does this with 3 major pillars or divisions. It's through the community, education, and innovation. We engage with the community through diverse events, host hackathons, collect people together that have interest in neurotech, and it leads to good communication, sparks of ideas, and development of a vibrant community. We also invest a lot in education. NeuroTechX has a lot of initiatives that we'll hear some of today that focuses on educating people about neurotech. It's a fairly new field, and anybody that is interested in joining in, feel free to check out some of these resources. They're really amazing to get started on neurotechnology. Finally, there's lots of innovation happening. There's some technical competitions going on. We'll talk about some of that today as well. And really interesting time, an exciting time to be in neurotech. And NeuroTechX is at the center of it all. We've grown a lot since its start, about 5 years ago. we're up to about 16,000 plus community members. That's amazing. And this is spread across 25 chapters worldwide. And to date, we've hosted upwards of 200 global events, including hackathons, hack nights, community outreach events, and so on. So welcome to this particular event, the COVID version of Buzz and Review. And this is hosted by 5 NeuroTech chapters: Boston, Toronto, NeuroTech, New York, DC, and Hamilton. On to Cesar to cover the big trends of 2020.
Hello, everyone. I'm a neuroscientist from Harvard University, and I'm here to share with you the latest and greatest of neurotech in the last year. We'll now share my screen. Okay, a lot of happenings in the year of 2020. We're gonna start things off by talking about news from Kernel. Kernel, if you're not familiar with it, is a company that's based in LA, and they're working on non-invasive brain-computer interfaces. The company was founded by Brian Johnson, and their overall vision is to have one of their devices in every home of the US by 2033. Now, in May, Kernel raised $53 million in its most recent round of funding. And October brought the first public demo of one of Kernel's devices. This is the device pictured there on the right. That's the Kernel Flow. This device uses near-infrared light to measure blood oxygenation levels, which are correlated with neural activity. This is similar to the measurements taken by functional MRI. The demo centered around the very impressive hardware that the company has developed in the last couple of years. It is an order of magnitude better than what's out there on the market. During the demo, Brian Johnson called for research proposals to explore the potential uses of this device, which leads us to the news from December, when Kernel announced that it would give away 23 of these flow systems to elite academic and industry groups that would make use of the device to study a wide range of topics, from lucid dreaming to neurodegenerative diseases. And lastly, in January of this year, Kernel entered into a partnership with a Canadian company, Cybathlon, which is working towards the development of psychedelic-based therapeutics. 2020 also brought a lot of updates from Synchron. This is a company based in Australia that has developed a stent outfitted with recording and stimulating electrodes. The device is very creatively called a stentrode. Use of this device requires a minimally invasive surgery in which the stentrode is inserted through the jugular and placed within the blood vessels over the motor cortex of patients. This is a much less risky procedure compared to the open brain surgery necessary to place electrodes directly on top or inside the brain tissue. 2020 was an eventful year for the company. First, they received a large infusion of cash from the Australian government to advance the commercialization of its tech and bring it to patients. Synchron's device also received breakthrough device designation by the US FDA, which is aimed at expediting the development of this technology. In October, the company reported successful outcomes for 2 patients with ALS, which is a crippling neuromuscular disorder. Researchers used signals from the motor cortex of these patients to enable them to interact with their digital devices so that they could text, email, and shop. This has a huge positive impact on the patient's quality of life. On the prosthetic front, we saw various updates from a variety of groups. In March, a group from the University of Michigan developed the regenerative peripheral nerve interface. This interface consists of a small graft of muscle tissue surgically attached to the end of a severed nerve in an amputee's arm. While other neural interfaces can be harmful to nerves, this interface promotes healthy nerve growth and acts as a bioamplifier, that is, converting faint neural signals sent from the brain into large recordable muscle signals that remain stable for years. This prosthetic gives amputees new intuitive control of the most advanced robotic hands on the market. September brought news from Limbs, who released their Atom Touch, which is their first mind-controlled artificial arm. This is a modular prosthetic which allows it to be customized for the individual patient. The release of this device is quite a feat since the company was founded just over a year ago. In December, Tesla Suit released its latest device, the Tesla Suit Glove. This device integrates haptics, motion capture, biometry, and force feedback. This glove has a range of breakthrough applications from extended reality training to rehabilitation and much more. Tesla Suit was one of the presenters at the recent Neurotech gaming event hosted by NeuroTechX, where they talked about their flagship product, Tesla Suit. This is a full-body device that incorporates haptics, which has many uses, such as providing the user with a full-body experience of acceleration in a virtual racing game. If you want to hear more, make sure to check out the recording of the NeuroTechX event in the YouTube channel. And with that, I will pass it on to Al.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen now. All right. So excited to talk to everyone about some of the research news going on. Obviously, there's a lot, as Cesar said, a lot going on in this space. So we're just going to give you some of the highlights that the team at NeuroTechX thought was the most exciting, or some of the most exciting. So first, let's start in the non-invasive space where we are trying to, or we're looking at different types of electrodes. A particularly interesting technology that a lot of people are looking into are these tattoo-style electrodes, where conductive material is effectively painted on the skin of potential users. So here is an example from a group doing this type of style that allows for EEG measurements that's also compatible with doing MEG. So allows researchers to do multimodal measurements. These types of electrodes are really nice because as a lot of you know that are experimenting with this, whether it's gel-based electrodes or dry electrodes, the fact that if you don't have a good contact between the electrode and the skin, things like motion artifacts, limit or degrade the signal. So this type of technology is really exciting. Similarly, another group has done another style of these, tattoo style conductive electrodes where they have now combined it with other measurements such as temperature sensors. So again, as we move towards more wearables, this type of technology will play a big part. Now, moving on to the therapeutic space, an exciting area for patients is stimulation to allow people that have blindness to be able to see. So I think one of the original companies out there that had a device, the Argus 2, was by, I believe the company name is called Second Sight. So they were the first ones to do this type of implant. They have since come up with a second version, but this device has researchers, for example, those at Baylor University are using them by changing the stimulation patterns to be able to allow patients to be able to see different shapes. And that's really exciting for these patients because I believe the original implants only allowed patients to see if they could see light or dark, if what was in front of them was, effectively there was light or it was in darkness. So being able to see shapes is really exciting. And it also points out the fact that, in terms of the implant space, how we stimulate nerves, the different patterns, the currents, the frequencies can play a huge part in, how we activate nerves for different functions. Another interesting development out of the University of Pittsburgh was that they use, spinal cord stimulation implants to give people that didn't have a limb or had a lost limb to be able to sense touch. Now, spinal cord implants aren't new. People use them for pain relief, and they're really they were spun off effectively from your pacemakers, where the electrodes help people with various heart conditions. So these types of implants were used for pain relief, but people are researching how they can use it to stimulate a sense of touch. And this is really important in the implant space because, doctors, while people like Neuralink are doing really cool things, trying to introduce a new surgical procedure, a new device is very challenging. So this is a very clever way to allow us to use existing equipment or existing implants, just using them in a new way so doctors don't have to learn something new to give patients a sense of touch. Similarly, researchers at EPFL in Switzerland have figured out ways to stimulate nerves for restoring various functions in mice. So that's more of the long-term vision of how this type of technology can be used to help people be able to either get a sense of touch or control prosthetics. And then finally, coming back to in September, the visual space, the visual implant space, researchers from Monash University in Melbourne, Australia, have a new implant that bypasses the optic nerve if it's damaged, and combining that with a camera, external camera, and the implant, the array implant, and like a smartphone style app, patients are able to be able to see again. So with that, I will pass it off to John, who will talk about regulatory approvals. Sorry.
Thanks a lot, Al, and great to be with you all. I will just share my screen and we'll crack on. Okay, well, yeah. So welcome everyone. I'm John from Toronto. I'm going to take you through 3 sections now from our presentation. We're going to look at tech innovation. We're going to take a look at regulatory approvals, as Al said. Then we're going to take a break, and we have a question to ask for you in the break. And then we're going to move on to tech funding. As you've seen already, and you'll see a lot more, it's been a really busy year for neurotech despite the pandemic, which is great. And in particular, there's been a lot of work and a lot of action in 2 areas that are really interesting to me, which is neuromodulation and just improving sensor technologies for non-invasive and invasive brain measurement. So we'll hear a little bit about those things over the next few slides. So let's jump in on tech innovations first. So it was a pretty busy year for new devices. Here we have, stay back. So I'm going to run through each of these devices that was, each were kind of released this year. So starting off with, I just want to check actually before I go too much further that I'm sharing the slides and not sharing my whole screen, because I don't want you guys to be seeing like my Zoom button on the right hand side, which I fear I might have done. So sorry to interrupt myself. Just going to resume my screen share. Okay, so we had a interesting new device coming from a company called Zito, and this is on the top left of the screen here, and it's called this is the first FDA approved device that is a fully dry EEG system. Dry EEG is a relatively new type of EEG electrode technology that basically lets you get decent EEG brain data without using conductive gel. And anyone has had any experience with administering gel for something like a 64-channel EEG cap, which takes about half an hour, appreciates the value of having something you can just put on your head and just get data like so. And it's really important for clinical reasons as much as just the convenience and the time aspect. So this device from Zito, which is a pretty, I would say, again, medium-sized dry EEG system, quite a lot of channels, quite bulky, but approved for clinical use and a pretty high-quality system. So that's really awesome. Neurosity released the Notion 2. Neurosity are a really interesting company. They're kind of a neurohacker's favorite company in a way, for a few reasons, one of which is the specs of this device. So the Notion is again, it's a dry wireless EEG system, but it has basically an onboard computer. Has a pretty high powered onboard computer and onboard mobile communication functionality, and that basically will allow things like onboard ML analysis, AI analysis of EEG data, in IoT, Internet of Things type applications where we have like something that doesn't need to be streaming to your computer, then your computer doing a bunch of processing and then things being offline. So this is a really cool device from Neurosity, and we're really looking forward to seeing what people do with that. OpenBCI, again, a hacker's favorite company, really have been pretty critical, to be honest, in the development and expansion of the maker side of neurotechnology. OpenBCI. So what they're doing with the new device that they've announced some of the specs of this year is they're doing something that everyone knows, I think, is a good idea, but they're actually going for it, which is combining a mobile EEG system with augmented and virtual reality. So they're doing that. They have a device that will sense brain data, but also give you augmented reality images in the visual field. And from what I've heard, I think it's all kind of new stuff, but it's going to be a fairly polished consumer electronics level device, a little bit more aimed at the general public, let's say, than the hacker community. But I'm sure it'll be of major interest to people who like to tinker as well. And then finally, in the top right, we had this pretty crazy device from GTech, who are GTech are an established EEG company. They make high level systems. They have wireless dry systems as well. So they're kind of hitting all parts of the market. But the Pangolin, so named for obvious reasons, hopefully, is the highest density EEG device that has ever been released. It's I think 1,000 channels or so. And that is basically not quite an order of magnitude, but about 5 times larger than, let's say, an EGI system, which is 250. So that's a crazy number of channels for an EEG system. And they demonstrated this with a pretty interesting kind of fashion design art exhibit that the lady in the top right was part of. So I encourage you to do some Googling and look up GTech Pangolin if you're interested in intersection of neurotechnology and fashion, and looking forward to seeing what people can do again with that device when it comes through into the research and the consumer areas. On the bottom, we have some interesting new stimulation devices or neuromodulation devices. So a company called NeoRhythm. I think this was a Indiegogo campaign, if I remember correctly. It's a low energy, I think, magnetic brain stimulation device. Interesting piece of tech. Has some new form features and some new kind of, I think, physical components that are pushing the brain stimulation space in towards this kind of good form factor consumer electronics space, which is always good to see. The device second from the left here on the bottom was the Cove. This is a vibratory stimulation device that basically administers a little buzz to the bone behind your ear, and which has interesting neuromodulatory effects as it happens, vibratory stimulation. So the Cove is a pretty cool device that is pushing neuromodulation in a new direction, using vibratory stimulation. And then we have NeuroFuss on the bottom right here. So this is one of a few companies or a few manufacturers are getting into the space of focused ultrasound. Focused ultrasound is, as you can tell by the name, it's using ultrasound in a spatially focused way to engender. There's two things that focused ultrasound is used for. One is for actual non-invasive brain surgery, which is just a crazy concept in itself, but I really strongly encourage you to just look up what's being done with focused ultrasound for things like non-invasive deep brain surgery for essential tremor. Absolutely crazy. So it's used for brain surgery, but in brain surgery, it's like ablations, it's heating that leads to a lesion. And then lower energy focused ultrasound gives you brain stimulation. So it stimulates tissue thermally. And that's what the NeuroFuss device is, which is really interesting to see these focused ultrasound devices coming into the consumer electronics space. So yeah, big year for new devices. So we had some really fascinating announcements from Paradromics in July. Paradromics are a company who are developing high-end invasive recording technology. That is the kind of niche is it's super high density. So it's a bit like, well, if people have heard of a Utah array before, which is Paradromics are really pushing the envelope on the channel count that has been achieved by things like Utah arrays in the past. And they announced in July that they showed demonstration where they have a new little recording device that was capable of recording simultaneously from 30,000 channels concurrently in a demonstration in a sheep brain, which is nuts, honestly. 30,000 channels, wow. So they're pushing this forward, and they have some pretty optimistic timelines. So they're aiming for some clinical applications in, I think they said 2023, so 2 years from now. And their emphasis or their focus is in the area of paralysis and neuroprosthetics for people with movement difficulties. Awesome. We had some great new collaboration between researchers in Cambridge and UCL and Gower Labs developing not a new technology, but it's kind of a fringe technology, I think you say, is high density diffuse optical tomography. This is a type of optical imaging that's in the same class, you would say, as functional near infrared spectroscopy, or FNIRS, which we heard about earlier in terms of the Kernel device. So HD dot is a really fascinating tech. In principle, actually gives you better signal for certain things, certain types of brain measurement than FNIRS, but yet to be really developed to the same degree. So these developments from Gower Labs and Co has been really great to see. And the type of thing, they chose their application well here, which is infants, and it'll be infants with things like epilepsy and pediatric stroke. And it's a good choice because the infant brain, the skull is not very thick. So it's very amenable to penetration by optical signals. So it's a very, very good choice to target the development of these advanced new optical measurement techniques, and really cool to see. Okay, moving on to regulatory approvals now. We have, again, quite a lot going on. So in May, a big announcement from Neurometrics, who are with us today, sponsors of the event. Thanks a lot, Neurometrics. Neurometrics are a great company that have they specialize in electrical brain stimulation. And I would say that they have particularly good in two domains. They have, at a scientific level, some very advanced approaches, algorithms, and at some level, they've been pushing some of the kind of theoretical physics around the electrical current distributions that are induced by by different spatial patterns of sources and sinks of electrical stimulation on something like an EEG cap, so transcranial electrical stimulation. And so they have some really interesting improvements in the way that you can generate patterns of brain stimulation spatially using high density stimulation arrays. And they also have, like a number of companies, they're not the only ones, but I think they're one of the leaders really. They've been pushing this area of at-home therapeutics, which is something that you can do in particular with transcranial electrical stimulation and EEG, which is their kind of special combo. And because unlike TMS, which is another, probably you could say the principal non-invasive brain stimulation technology, really with TMS, you have to go into the hospital and have to go into the clinic because it's a big piece of kit. It needs a lot of power. It's somewhat dangerous if it's not used properly. With electrical stimulation, it's easier to basically package this technology into an at-home device, and that's exactly what they have. So the Neurometrics at-home brain stimulation device is mobile controlled, and the patients basically sit down for an hour every day or a few days a week for a month or so, and they'll receive brain stimulation. It'll be their therapy session, kind of like a meditation session almost, and then they'll get on with their day. So in May, there was a FDA approval for one of these devices, these at-home brain stimulation devices for major depressive disorder, which is another area close to my heart. This is an area of science that I work on and clinical neurology that I work on. And so they'll be going ahead over the next few years. This, I should say, is led by Alvaro Pascal Leon in Harvard. They'll be going ahead with a clinical trial using these devices to try and treat depression in patients with at-home brain stimulation. Very cool. Switching up a little bit, so this is definitely neurotechnology adjacent, I would say, which is gaming. So Achilles announced a new device, a new paradigm almost, which is for treating autism symptoms with an app, with basically a video game that you play, I think on mobile devices. And so the game that they've developed has been shown to improve attentional function, and it's been backed by a number of research studies, including a randomized clinical control trial. So this was a really exciting development for this general trend of gamification of therapies in neurology and psychiatry, and so really excited to see where this goes with Achilles. Okay, back to neuromodulation. So in July, we had this FDA approval for the Percept deep brain stimulation device. So Percept this device is coming from Medtronic, which is a big neurotechnology device manufacturer. And what's special about this is that it's going to be the first deep brain stimulation system that can chronically capture brain signals. So it's typically, to date, deep brain stimulation systems have mainly been basically implanted stimulators that you turn on and off, and they don't do a whole lot else. But this device is going to be basically capable of making chronic, long-term recordings, and potentially being, ultimately the way it's going to go to is closed loop real-time neuromodulation as well. I don't think that's part of this device yet, but the capturing and basically wirelessly streaming brain signals is a big technological development that's been pushed forward with this device. So this is also not precisely in the neurotechnology space, but very, very relevant, is the new app that's been developed by Abbott. And in July, they had approval for a mobile app that basically is going to allow patients to control their implanted neuromodulation devices using an app rather than something like a kind of somewhat ad hoc little button box. And there'll be other things that come with that, like better data management, better tracking of what the stimulation protocols and the therapy regimen that's being followed actually are. So there's a lot of good things that are going to come from better data capture in terms of just the control of neuromodulation devices, which is what this new technology is going to be facilitating. This is super interesting again for me. So Brainsway are a company that have been working on a new type of, well, a non-traditional type of TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation device, that is a deep TMS device. And you can see a little bit in the picture here, this lady has a kind of a hairdryer coming down on her head, and what's in the hairdryer there is a coil, but it's a coil that's basically like the top of a bucket. So it's a particularly it's a coil that's specially designed to achieve deep stimulation, as opposed to let's say the figure-of-8 coils that you might be used to that they stimulate relatively peripherally, which has always been one of the issues really with TMS. So really exciting that this new type of stimulation system has been is making progress in the regulatory approval space, and what they're targeting with this system is so far has been addiction and things like smoking cessation, which they've had success with clinical trials in so far, which is great. We had FDA approval in September for a new type of neuroprosthetic array. So again, this is in the area of like improved recording arrays, improved higher density recording systems from the Decaloop prosthetic arm. And so basically improvements in the recording devices that are used to control neuroprosthetics. A lot of action in this space over the last few years, and it's really picking up. This is pretty interesting. So in October, we had an announcement and what's called an FDA Breakthrough Device Designation, which basically means this is a new thing that we're going to let you do. We're going to fast track you to doing things like clinical trials. That's what the Breakthrough Device Designation is. And this was it's not vibratory stimulation, it's electromagnetic stimulation, but it's not aimed at neuromodulation per se. What the company are aiming for and what they've demonstrated with this technology is the targeting of Alzheimer's plaques. So their technology, which they call transcranial electromagnetic treatment, which is a little bit lame really for a name, but the results are impressive. Is so basically they've shown that they can administer this electromagnetic stimulation, and it'll lead to a dissolving and dissipation of Alzheimer's plaques, and resulting in a improvement in cognitive symptoms like memory impairment in patients with Alzheimer's. So so FDA basically approved these guys to go ahead and proceed with some more clinical trials with this device. Very exciting. In November, we had FDA approval of what's going to be now the most powerful MRI scanner for clinical uses. It's coming from General Electric's Signa 7T. So for people who aren't so familiar, the standard field strength for MRI systems is most parts of the world now 3 Tesla, but some are still 1.5 Tesla. So 1.5 and 3 Tesla are your kind of standard MRI field strengths for human scanners in hospitals. 7T scanners have been around for a while, but they've not really, let's say, like, broke through into the hospital space, because it's more than twice the effort to have a 7T, to have twice the magnetic field is the bottom line when it comes to MRI. And it turns out that 3 Tesla is the sweet spot. But GE have been working on the technology and working on the demonstration of the clinical efficacy, and they've got a clearance for this new. So this will be the first 7T scanner that will start seeing 7T scanners in hospitals now, which is about time, I think, about time. Okay, tech funding. So we had a few interesting Kickstarter campaigns this year. I'm going to maybe highlight just one of these, which is the Brink Bionics Neurocontroller PC gaming interface, which they had a number of backers pledging. So this is a EMG device that is basically it will detect your initial motor signals, neural signals in the muscles that precede the initiation of a movement. And what that gets you is a couple of extra dozen milliseconds in speed. So the target, as you can imagine, is things like first-person shooter games where you need to be quick, and a couple of dozen milliseconds buys you a lot more kills, or buys you a lot more success in the game. And yeah, really interesting to see this type. There are a lot of EMG-based neuroprosthetic and neurotechnology devices coming out in the area of prosthetics and in the area of gaming, and it's something that I think we're going to start seeing a lot of around about in our daily lives fairly soon. Roon Labs are a mobile device company, or a cloud services company that are basically going to be aggregating people's data, aggregating clinical brain imaging data, and particularly clinical neuromodulation data, and supplying a cloud services platform to companies who are doing interesting things, and clinicians, hospitals who need services, and researchers who need their data organized. Very sensible space to be occupying. It's definitely great to have your data organized, and they've done a good job of closing a large seed funding campaign to push that through. Magstim acquired electrical geodesics. So Magstim are one of the two major TMS companies in the world. The other is MagVenture, but Magstim are really the principal TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation device manufacturer. And EGI, electrical geodesics, are kind of one of the more old school EEG companies that have a very, very high spec system, very, very high, interesting, high density, and the nets, these electrode arrays, but also the amplifiers that they have for them. Pretty kind of high spec tech, and it indicates the intention of Magstim to move towards integrating high density EEG with their research and their clinical offerings, which is really great, because multimodal is always better from the point of view of most things in neuroscience and neurotechnology, and Magstim are definitely aiming for that now. We had a big successful funding round from a company called Neurovalence, who are also doing brain stimulation. Really interesting, but I'm gonna just move on in the interest of time. NeuroTechX NeuroTechnologies, these guys are doing interesting stuff. These guys are pioneering something that's, maybe you could think of it as the version 2.0 of neuromodulation devices, which is we call closed loop, which is, in broadly speaking, it's having the stimulation respond to the brain state, and applying the right kind of brain stimulation at the right time, at the right frequency, at the right amplitude, according to what the frequency or the brain activity in the place that you're targeting is, and basically smart brain stimulation delivery, you could say. So yeah, new big seed funding round for NeuroTherapeutics, who are doing innovative stuff in this space. And last one on tech funding is Astellas, who acquired IOTA Biosciences, who have been pushing the envelope in neural dust. So neural dust is, as the name suggests, well, you can't exactly figure out what it is from the name, but it's really impressive tech. It's basically very, very small brain that are wirelessly powered, and essentially the idea is you would have, for example, open up the skull. You're going to have to open up the skull for this type of thing, sprinkle the neural dust onto the surface of the brain, and then close up the skull, and then you can wirelessly basically power those sensors through the skull transcranially, and I believe is the case with this one, wirelessly beam the activity measurements through the skull as well. So that's the type of thing that neural dust is. Really interesting type of device, really kind of out there in a way, but it's happening. And yeah, big announcement from IOTA Bions, from Astellas acquiring this company who've been innovating in this area. Okay, competition results up next. Or are we taking a break? I think we'll take a break and do our poll right now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm actually waiting for some confirmation from our team that that's what we're going to do right now.
Yeah, let's do the poll.
Yep, cool. Okay, so what we'd like to know, guys, is will you be staying with us? Will you be staying with us for our Gavatown event, which is happening starting around 8:15? And we just need to know this because we need to know if we need to massively increase our capacity. So if you could just take a look at your screen and click yes if you're going to be staying with us, and no if you're going to go on to something more interesting.
Oh man, this real-time tallying view is pretty cool. I actually hadn't seen this before.
Yeah, it's like a race. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Equalizing. So we're at currently 48, 49 for yes, and around 30 or 32 for no. I'm going to leave this going for another minute or two. And what I'm going to do is bow down, take my microphone off and hand over to Joe. So thanks a lot, guys. See you in the Gavatown.
Sounds great. Cool. Yeah, I'm going to go through one of my favorite parts of being part of the NTX community, which is being able to tap into a bunch of really interesting competitions that happen throughout the year. Last year, there was a number of different companies that ran competitions. Also, NeuroTechX leads some, and different organizations. I'm going to show you kind of what some of the opportunities were and encourage you to keep an eye out for the next batch coming up this year and beyond. The first one is the Norika 2020 Epilepsy Challenge. This is run by Novella Neurotech. It's just a sorry about that. Novella Neurotech. It's just a neuro data company that kind of tries to make it easier for people with different neurological conditions to live their lives. This challenge was put on in collaboration with NeuroTechX, and it was focused on seizure prediction challenge using this large open access data set on epilepsy seizures in EEG data. And contestants were judged based on the sensitivity of their detection algorithm, whether they could detect seizures from the EEG data set that was provided as part of the challenge. So the criteria was the sensitivity, how many of the seizures were actually detected, the false alert rate out of 24 hours of recording, and then also the number of channels used. So the winners, the biometa regulars from Belgium, they had actually a very high sort of sensitivity rate. And what was interesting about the second place team from the University of Australia was that they only used 2 channels for their detection algorithm, which, out of all the ones available, it was really interesting to see how there were very different approaches, some focusing on using as many channels as possible, others focusing on using as few as possible, which is actually a debate that we have, raging in the comments of the webinar at the moment. So talk about that more afterwards. Neosensory, the makers of the Neosensory device, which kind of converts sound or other inputs into haptic feedback in the wrist via these little little motors. They ran their competition, Hack Your Senses, which was their first developer competition, and the winner, Chris Bartley, created sort of an air quality sensor, and he used volatile organic compound sensors. He kind of hacked an Arduino sensor into this device that enabled the vibrations would pick up as the air quality around the device sort of deteriorated. So if you were like by your gas stove, you could feel the vibration of it, or if the CO2 in the room was higher, you could feel that all of a sudden. And it was interesting that there were other entries that won that focused kind of on detecting CO2 and COVID as a focus of this, and giving someone like a physical metric that they could kind of judge the quality of the air. So it was a very interesting device, interesting competition. They have details on all the winners on their website. If you go to their blog, you can learn more about each of the projects. And it's a great place to get inspiration if you're considering how some of this technology could be applied. They're also running a follow-up competition. I'm sure they're going to do it again in the future because their first ones were very successful. One of my favorite competitions, the NeuroTechX Student Club competition, happened this year. Student clubs from all around the world participate, and it really great projects that came out of this. The first place team in the open challenge was McGill Neurotech. They made the EMG board, which was like a control labs like device. EMG sensors on the person's forearm would convert different muscle movements into commands that could be displayed as sort of mouse clicks or commands in Unity. They had like a whole 3D engine and an actual virtual keyboard and kind of like operating system that was based on forearm movements rather than mouse clicks. Really cool technology, and that team at McGill has been strong for a long time in this competition. The Polycortex team made the Polydodo, which was a sort of low-cost sleep research setup. And then they demonstrated how it could be used for classifying different stages of sleep, which is a really interesting field of research. And then the Mint team made a device called the Jellyfish, which was sort of an adjustable EEG headset that had a unique kind of fluid system where you could put some saline solution in the top of the headset and it would distribute it out to the different electrode locations, increasing the signal quality of what is still a very low cost option. So really, really interesting projects from here. As a student, this is a great way to get involved, look up the universities that participated in these contests in previous years to get a sense of, where are there clubs that are creating interesting work. If I'm considering some schools. Also, as a company, this is the sort of the future generation of neuroscientists and neurotechnologists, and understanding what they're interested in at this stage in their careers is a really interesting opportunity for any neurotech companies in the audience as well. So I would encourage everybody to pay attention to this, the 2021 version of this. Bitbrain, another EEG company. Also, I believe they make other devices as well, but they ran a call for projects and grants, and they partnered up with the eye tracking company Tobii and psychology software tools to sort of offer these grant packages to, I think they chose 6 winners out of maybe 300 applicants. There was a huge response. They actually they increased the amount of grants. I think they actually went up to 170K or something in that range. But again, this is the projects that were accepted were really interesting. If you can go onto Bitbrain's website, and find this sort of the results page for their call for applications, it's sort of a who's who of different organizations around the world that are focusing on really unique problems involving EEG or involving neurotechnology, eye tracking, psychology software tools as well. So Bitbrain's also just a great company. I've often directed people to their blog as just sort of a place to learn more about neurotech concepts, and it's a very friendly but also, deep learning resource. Encourage people to check that out if they're trying to learn more. Also in 2020 was the Cybathlon. This is like the Bionic Olympics. They run it every 4 years. So they had their first one in 2016, and then 2020, they had an iteration of this. Teams from all over the world come to participate in one of 6 races. There's a prosthetic arm race. Race is more like, a series of challenges. Prosthetic arm race, the BCI race, the powered exoskeleton race, the leg prosthetic race, the powered wheelchair race, and then there was also a functional electronic stimulation race. And it's just really interesting. The purpose of this event, was kind of founded out of ETH Zurich, another great school, to bridge the gap between researchers, device manufacturers, and the individuals actually living with the different conditions that these technologies were designed to provide assistive function for, assistive technology. And I've never had the chance to participate, but I love watching the videos from these events. And I am hoping that by 2024, we'll all be in a position to be able to go attend this in person. But a big fan of this event and all the competitions that you would have access to. One of the great things being part of NeuroTechX is, you get made aware of these things early and as they're happening, so you can put it on your calendar, find a way to get involved if this is the type of thing that you want to spend some time doing. And also all of the results and winners of these competitions, it's great inspiration for if it overlaps with your research or your work. So I encourage you to kind of, the deck will be distributed after the presentation, and have a look through and just kind of see if there's anything in here that really piques your interest. And with that, I'm going to hand it off for an overview of some of the NeuroTechX community efforts that have been going on. And I look forward to talking to all of you after the presentation in GatherTown.
Hi, everyone. Can you see my screen? Yeah, sounds good. Okay, let me just make sure I can see this. Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Ho. I'm from Neurotech Hamilton in Canada, and I'm sharing with you the various efforts from the NeuroTechX community. So right now I'm going to post into the chat the various links that you're going to see in the next few slides so that you can click on them as you're interested in them. Let me make sure that I can pull that up quickly. Oh, sorry, I think I have to stop sharing. Okay. There you go. That's the list of the links that I'll be going through, just so you can follow along and click on them as you find your interest in them. Okay. The NeuroTechX Diversity Initiative, because NeuroTechX is quite a large international group, and because it's often where individuals are first introduced to brain-computer interfaces, as it was for me, addressing diversity and inclusivity is important to us so that everyone feels welcome to explore the field of neurotechnology, regardless of their personal identifiers. So NeuroTechX also recognizes that it's not the responsibility of underrepresented groups alone to create spaces that are equitable and inclusive. And so to address equity, diversity, and inclusivity, NeuroTechX has created a 2-tier system consisting of a diversity committee and a diversity consortium. And our goal for this system is to harness the enthusiasm of those with the time and energy to work on addressing diversity issues, while simultaneously making sure feedback from diverse stakeholders is included in all decision-making, regardless of whether or not someone has the capacity to regularly contribute. So if you would like to participate or learn more about it, there's a link in the chat, and you can find out more by looking up the NTX Diversity channel. EEG Notebooks. So EEG Notebooks is a community project for anyone who wants to explore EEGs, like ones that we had discussed earlier in this presentation by John. With EEG Notebooks, you can run cognitive neuroscience experiments with mobile EEGs from your own personal laptop. If you have one of the very many EEG devices that, like you can see in this picture right here. And that's really cool because you can do this right from your home, so no pandemic can get in your way. If you're interested in learning more and potentially joining this project, you can check out this GitHub link, which is also in the chat. Mother of all BCI benchmarks. The Mother of all BCI benchmarks is a community project intended to address any issue. One of the issues that we have in BCI research, and actually in research in general, and that's the issue of reproducibility. And reproducible research is important for the advancement of neuroscience and neurotechnology research in general. So the goal of the Mother of all BCI benchmarks is to create one benchmark or some sort of marker that all owners of these EEG datasets can work towards. And if you would like to contribute to the Mother of all benchmarks or learn a little bit more about it and their what algorithms they're working on, have a look at each of these links. And I know that these slides will be distributed later, but if you would like a little bit of a head start, you can find one of the links in the chat. The Content Laboratory. The NTX Content Laboratory is an internal initiative to create content by our community, for our community, and with our community in mind. And so you're part of that community too. And you can check out the various articles on the NTX website. It's a team of writers, editors, and designers across NTX that have come together to create original content about our space. And as a neurotech newbie myself, I found that this was a great resources for making neurotechnology news and information really digestible. So if you're sort of new in this neurotech field and you're here just because you want to get some information of what BCIs and neurotechnology is, I really highly recommend looking at the NTX website and seeing some of the content that they have there. And they are looking for more people. So if you're interested in joining this group and contributing your time and energy to it, check out the links in the chat. I think there's an email there for you to take a look at. Here's a timeline of the many events that took place in 2020 despite the pandemic, and I'll let you glaze over each of these items. But because we had so much momentum going on, even despite having to be stuck in our homes, we hope to keep this momentum going into 2021, such as keeping up the Buzz and Review event, which you can see our first one was all the way back in last January, and I can't believe that was a whole year ago. But anyway, we hope to see you at our other events. And if you want to stay connected to these groups, check out the links in the chat. All right, and with that, I'll pass off the mic to Alex, who's going to go through the last bit of our slides.
Thanks, Rachel. So I will share my screen. Okay, so I'm presenting the extras section of this talk, which will highlight companies and research that didn't quite fit the other sections of this presentation, but that nonetheless show potential use in the field of neurotech in the future. I'm going to also figure out how to go forward here. So first up is BlackRock Microsystems, who in August announced they would license the vCenter's NeuroKey software, which processes neural signals in real time. It interfaces with multiple brain signal acquisition sources and devices, extending the reach of BCI applications. And what it actually does is collect brain signals from different sources in real time, as well as integrate with other types of data like temperature or blood flow. And initially it was created to be used for neural interface research and clinical use. Now, this is important because the current limitation of neural signal processing applications is that there's no single software platform that directly works with the multiple devices collecting brain signals. And NeuroKey solves this problem by collecting different kinds of data in real time. Also, researchers and clinicians have had to develop their own software for this kind of work, which limits its effectiveness and slows down the implementation of solutions to the clinic. NeuroSky is optimized for use with implantable high channel count BCIs. So this high performance data analysis platform is an important building block for complete real-time neural interface research and clinical applications, which includes restoration of movement, communication, and control of assistive devices. So what can this lead to? Well, The medical grade platform is compatible with commercial hardware and sensors and can be adapted to custom made devices. So NeuroKey has the potential to accelerate BCI R&D for clinical development in the lab and at home. In partnership with the V-Center, and the partnership between the V-Center and BlackRock Microsystems is a strong example of the center's translational approach, because it combines the technical talent and research and development efforts of the center staff with the clinical and market knowledge of BlackRock Microsystems, who has been the leading provider of reliable invasive BCI technology to researchers and BCI pioneers, i.e. tetraplegic patients, for more than a decade now. Next up is the Google Amber project. So Alphabet X, which was formerly Google X, the company's arm for quote unquote moonshot projects, came out with Project Amber last October. And it was a project that intended to identify a biomarker for depression and focused on 3 areas in particular. So 1, making EEG data easier to collect. 2, making EEG data easier to interpret using machine learning. And 3, understanding how this technology might be applied in the real world. And some key insights from this project were, firstly, mental health measurement remains an unsolved problem. However, there is value in combining subjective and objective data. And 3, there are multiple use cases for new measurement technology. So why is this important? Well, firstly, current mental health evaluation is very subjective and lacks clear markers in the data. The EEG used in this project provided a potential method to quantify mental illness, progress, or severity. Also, EEG studies are done in neuroscience labs, which require expensive specialized equipment and highly trained EEG experts to collect, process, and interpret the data, and hence are not very scalable in real life. So what could Project Amber lead to? Well, for EEG to come out of the lab into the real world as a mental health assessment tool in a primary care doctor's office, counseling center, or psychiatric clinic, it first needs to become more accessible and usable at scale. So open sourcing Project Amber's EEG hardware device and software on GitHub will hopefully allow the mental health research community to build upon their work. And this will empower individuals and their healthcare provider to better match intervention options to an individual's needs, or to measure the impact of those interventions, and to ultimately promote better mental health. And finally, it's been 5 years since the start of NeuroTechX. We here at NeuroTechX can't believe how quickly the time has flown by. Our international community has grown so much and continues to grow, all thanks to attendees like you. We want to thank you for attending this Buzz and Review event. If you have any questions or comments about any section in this presentation that we haven't already answered, I highly encourage you to join us at the GatherTown event directly following this Zoom. It will be a fun networking event, and there will be neurotech companies in attendance you can talk to and learn more about, and we hope you'll stay in touch. In general, though, if you'd like to learn more about the NeuroTechX organization, please visit our website, neurotechx.com. If you'd like to share this event on social media, feel free to use the hashtags hashtag NTXBIR 2021 or NTX years. And finally, if you have any questions, please shoot us an email at info@neurotechx.com. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to Cesar, who will provide the link to our GatherTown event and give us a quick demo on how to use the platform. Take it away, Cesar.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so I'm just gonna give you an overview of the GatherTown layout and what we have in store for you during this event. So I'm gonna share my screen here. Okay. So when you click the link that will drop in the chat, you will get to this landing page. And what you can do here is you can control what you want to display. When you enter the room, do you want to display your camera? So here I am turning mine on. And you can also turn on and off your microphone. I recommend that you don't have your microphone on too you don't have it on Zoom and in this platform, because then there will be some feedback and it'll be unpleasant. So first thing you want to do when you get here is you want to put in your name so that your avatar can be identified. That's what I'm here. And when you have done that, you can join the gathering. And where you will enter is into one of the 4 rooms that we have. Here I have entered, this is the lounge that we have for you. And you have your avatar here, and you will notice on the left here, you have basically everyone that's in the Gather Town event currently. You can chat with people specifically if you want to reach out to someone specifically, or you can chat with people that are near you, with other avatars that are near you, or you can, chat with everyone. Here at the bottom, also, you can customize your avatar to sort of fit whatever you want to display to the rest of the attendees. I chose a snowman since it's Boston and it's really cold. So your avatar can be moved with your keyboard arrows, or if you're a gamer with WASD, whatever you're most comfortable. And the feature of Gather Town is that when you move close to someone, such as I'm moving close to Alex here, her voice and her video will, I'll be able to hear and interact with her. And when I move away, she will fade out. You will also find across our space TVs such as this one, and there's Alex. And you can interact with this objects by pressing X, and when you do that, you will have videos. So here's an NTX 5 anniversary video in this TV. You can press X to exit. You will also see that sometimes we have this posters in some places of some parts of the space. You can click X to interact with it and scroll down. Here's info about NeuroTechX in general. Last thing I want to point out is that in addition to the general space that you can roam around, there are private spaces that you can enter. So here are these grayed out spaces, usually around some seats and some tables. When you enter that space, only the people that are within that space can interact with each other. So this is a great way for you to sort of find a corner if you want to talk to someone specifically. And just last thing I want to show you is just sort of the general layout of the land of our gathering space. So here's the main hall. What you'll see here is the different booths that the company has. Each company has a booth, and each of these booths is made up of a private space. So only the people within that space can interact with each other. So we have Divergence, BrainCo, Neurolectics, and many, many more. So yeah, so we will drop the link in the chat and enjoy the event. So stop sharing. Also, we will hang around for just a few minutes in the Zoom channel, so that in case you can't access the Gather Town for whatever reason, we'll be here to help you sort that out.